With the finale now here, what did you think of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Let's talk about it.
That shield represents a lot of things to a lot of people.
Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler talk review for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 6, One World, One People. Overall, was it a good finale? I think so. I think it did what it was supposed to do. It closed the proper plot lines that needed to be closed and left open what needed to be left open to give us a good direction and future for the MCU, leaving us some pretty interesting things to explore. So I think taking this whole series together, now that we have the finale, I'm going to give it a solid B as a series. I feel like I was way more engaged in WandaVision. As a show that worked better for me, it left enough where I wanted more, especially, like, the first 3 episodes were slow, but once I really got into it, it worked backwards, and it made the first 3 episodes better. This one, I maintain the same opinion I had at the very beginning. When I started watching the show, my biggest problem was, this should be a movie. Why is this a show? Every single time I got into it, like, I did not like watching this week to week. Every single time I was getting into it, getting into the flow, getting into the story, it ended. And I was not a big fan of that, so I made a decision. My decision was, as soon as we got the finale, I was gonna go through and binge all the episodes building up to the finale, and that's what I did. It really was so much better in that binge, not waiting week to week, where you can really get into the ebbs and the flows of this show and follow more closely, I think, all the character arcs and the stuff that was going on. And really, it solidified my opinion. This should have been like a 2.5-hour movie in the vein of Winter Soldier. If you did it that way, you could trim the fat. You have all of the excellent action sequences. It has a good message, and it's got that solid story exploring the blip and all of that. So I feel like this could have worked better as a movie in the vein of Winter Soldier. I definitely enjoyed the experience way better binging the episodes back to back to back rather than watching this one week to week, getting into the flow, being interrupted, waiting a week to get back in the flow. That was the biggest challenge for me. So that's why as a series I give it a B. If this could have been a movie, I feel like I could have gone to B+, A- range. It was awesome to see Sam as the new Captain America. Now, yes, I haven't read a lot of Marvel comics, I haven't read a lot about Sam taking over as Captain America, but I have seen the pictures, and so it was very cool to see Sam decked out in his awesome Captain America outfit. That was worth the wait from last week to this week. It was cool to get the reveal of that costume, and very cool, like, you see, like, the silhouette of him flying through the sky, and it's like, oh my gosh, what does he look like? And so that first moment where he burst in and begins fighting, it's like, dude, yes. It's funny, my wife's sitting next to me, she's like, it's Falcon America. And I thought, yes, I like that, Falcon America. But it was very cool to see Sam complete his character arc, beginning with giving away the shield because it still felt like someone else's, and how they really dealt with that story and dived into it throughout this season, and you really see all the reasons why he needs to take up that shield. And so he takes up that shield, he becomes Captain America, and so that was something very rewarding. It was a very cool costume, and it was very cool to see him fight, having the best of both worlds. Like, he has no serum, so he doesn't have that strength, but the way that he wielded the shield and the wings, like, it was a very cool combination to see him fight like that. So it does add this very interesting dynamic to this new Captain America. Then it all culminates in, like, this hero speech given by Sam at the end, where all the media catches this, and he's talking to the GRC and those that were gonna do that vote to displace the people who were here during the 5 years and found new homes. And then everybody reappears, so they're trying to vote to move everybody out of the new homes they found so that the people who've reappeared can have homes to come back to. So it's interesting because the show didn't try to solve the problem of the blip, but what the show tried to do is address the fact that in this universe, the world is now facing this common struggle. Let's quit using that as a reason to divide, and let's come together and struggle together and figure this out together. But the other thing cool about Sam's speech is it's so true to his character. We meet him in The Winter Soldier, and we see him counseling veterans and trying to help them carry their baggage, trying to bring them peace. And throughout The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as Sam is learning the reasons why he needs to take up the shield, we see that counselor part of him, trying to help people find peace, trying to help Bucky find some measure of peace and crawl out of that hell that he's been living in for so long. I mean, you see that even up to where Carly is dying in his arms after Sharon Carter shoots her, like he's holding Carly in his arms, trying to help her find some measure of peace. So it's very interesting that you see that continue in his character, which shows that he's got that heart that Steve Rogers has. That now that he's picked up the shield, he's humbled by what it's supposed to stand for. And so in being humbled by that, he becomes a true hero. And he works to even bring Isaiah peace. I thought they did a good job with Isaiah's story. And in the end, Sam taking Isaiah to the museum, where now there's a section dedicated to him as a Captain America, as a soldier who served with the serum in that capacity. In other words, his history is no longer erased. And so he took up that mantle and is humbled by that mantle. So it was very good character development for Sam. Very cool way to bring him full circle and bringing up that shield, as well as honoring the best characteristics of his character that we met in Winter Soldier. That he is this counselor type person whose goal is to try to help people find some measure of peace in their lives. And so we see him do that in this finale, and I thought it was very cool because now you could look back throughout the show and be like, yeah, I mean, that's Sam. That's what Sam would do. He's trying to bring people peace. Now, overall, I think they did a good job with Bucky's character, because I feel like if we don't see him set free by the end of this episode, we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we know he sees the light at the end of the tunnel, because that advice that Sam gave him in the last episode, you need to do the work. There's got to be somebody on that list that you can give closure to. And that's what we see in this episode. He's actually doing the work, and we see freedom. We see that beginning for Bucky as he really is coming out of the nightmare he's been living. So when Carly called him, like when that lady handed Bucky the phone in that last fight scene as they're in the building with the GRC, and Bucky's talking to her, and I'm sitting here as the audience going, dude, she's distracting you. You gotta know she's distracting you. But I liked what he was saying to her because he sounded like Sam. He sounded like what Sam was saying to him in the last episode about doing the work to find that freedom. And that's what he's saying to her. From his own experience, he's saying the nightmares won't stop. So you need to stop now. And you need to change now. The way you're doing this fight is wrong. And so he's really, from experience, trying to tell her, stop, turn around, about face, don't do this. And I liked it because it really, you could just see Sam's character rubbing off on him. Like you could see that changing him. You could see him doing that work. And just like Sam said in episode 5, and I said that's predictable because the way he says there's got to be at least one name in that book that you could bring closure to. Immediately, you're connected to that man in that first episode whose son Bucky killed when he was the Winter Soldier. And that was a touching scene when he actually sat down with that man and he came clean to him. Now, what I wanted was for the camera to stay there in that scene, to really spend more time in those emotions. I wanted to see that man hug Bucky. I would love to have seen that man forgive Bucky and just be happy that he's received the closure and now he knows, and he knows the full truth, and so he can have some measure of peace about that. We didn't get that because what this is about, it's about Bucky. It's about Bucky doing the work. And so regardless of what that man's reaction was, because there's got to be so many conflicting feelings, thoughts, and emotions, what it's about is Bucky did the work. He was honest, he came clean, and he gave that man closure. And it was cool to see that. So this episode, you really do see Bucky put in that work. Even sending his therapist a gift. He was annoyed by that lady. I was a little bit annoyed by that lady. But he sent her a gift. And part of that gift was his book of names that he's crossed off for amends. That was awesome because it's that moment of freedom that we see. Bucky got freedom from the words that controlled him. So we saw that measure of freedom. And now we see him doing that work to really bring closure, and he sends his therapist the gift, which is that book with the names crossed off with a thank you note to her. So he's really putting in the work and the effort, and it's changing him, and he's getting free, and he's climbing out of that nightmare. Then at the end, where we have Sarah's party and everybody's eating, you really see Bucky there. at peace and having a good time. My one problem with that scene, he didn't ask Sarah out at the end, because that would have been hysterical to get Sam's reaction.
Don't flirt with my sister, because if you do, I'll have Carlos cut you up and feed you to the fish.
Sharon Carter. There was no surprise there at all whatsoever. It was obvious that she was the power broker, especially by episode 5. Like, I had my suspicions. She's more than she's letting on.
I'm disappointed in you. That's what I was gonna say.
Are you seeing that there? That's like full-on corrupt, building her own empire in Madripoor, and here she took Carly under her wing, and Carly betrays her to try to high-road her? I mean, that's Sharon got all that corrupt, building her own empire. So I felt no emotion whatsoever at the reveal, because I just thought it was that predictable going in. Like, as soon as that reveal came, I went, well, yeah. No duh. And then you have that post-credit scene where there she is standing in front of all the senators, and you have Sam who came through on his word, and she received her pardon. They even offer her her old position back. And she comes out of that, everybody applauding her, gets on the phone.
Super soldiers might be off the menu, but we're about to have full access to government secrets, prototype weapons, you name it.
Are you serious? Now look, I don't mind Sharon Carter being the power broker. It's kind of cool, even though it was predictable and not so much of a twist. But where I have a hard time believing it is because I really cannot see a universe where Steve did not go looking for her and find her. I mean, he went on the run for 2 years after Civil War, yet he had Sam and eventually connected with Black Widow, and he had that little team. And with Black Widow, I can't imagine they couldn't find Sharon. I can't imagine that Steve wouldn't go, you know, she risked everything for us. We need to go find her, and she needs to be with us, and we need to take care of her. Like, I cannot imagine a universe where Steve did not find her and reach out to her. Maybe he did. Since this is kind of left open for the future here, maybe in the future we'll get some sort of flashback, and we'll see Steve Rogers either couldn't find her or did, and she rejected his help because she's disillusioned. Like, I don't know how that's gonna go, but I cannot fathom a universe where Steve Rogers leaves her high and dry. Just can't picture it. Then you got John Walker. Now, he was interesting, and what they did with him this episode, I know nothing about U.S. Agent John Walker, like nothing at all. So I did a little bit of research, like bare minimum, saw he's this anti-hero type and all of that stuff. And so it was interesting. We got that post-credit scene in the last episode where he made his own shield, and now he shows up in this episode with his own shield. And at first, when you hear his name go, Carly Morgenthau, I was like, oh, here it goes. Here it goes. He's coming for his vengeance. And I really think it started that way. But it was interesting because when you had all of Carly's hostages in that truck, in that van, and it was about to go over and fall down in that pit, and he had to make a choice, save the hostages or get vengeance for the death of his partner. And he chose to save the hostages. When he does that and he grabs that truck, you have this moment where it's like he drops his shield, the shield that he made with his medals on it. He drops it. To me, that felt symbolic. Like, it's symbolic of him putting aside his vengeance and doing the right thing. And it was interesting because it does make his character so much more complex, because you really do see the battle within between the dark and the light. I thought that battle was over. And so it was a surprise for me to see that that battle was not over and to see him choose the light. Of course, now we have him at the end of this with Val, and he's got, you know, the black suit on. So I'm curious to see what his future in the MCU as U.S. Agent is going to be. Like I said, don't know about that in the comics. If you do, feel free to tell me about that now that we're done with this season. But I'm looking forward to seeing what is the MCU going to do with his character. There's no way they're done. So will it be another show? Will they bring him back in some sort of movie? So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with his character, because I really do see like that battle for good and evil is still alive in his soul, and good still has an opportunity to win. It was sad the way they ended Carly's story, and just the way she died in Sam's arms and just said, I'm sorry. It's like the last breaths where she realized, yeah, I totally went about this the wrong way. Like, you just get that impression at the end. And so it was a very interesting ending to Carly. Is that the end of the Flag Smashers? I guess we shall see. Although we do have that one shot of Zemo at the end on the raft after it's all set up and the truck that is taking away some of those Flag Smashers blows up, and it's like he has that smile of satisfaction that he completed his mission, that all who have super soldier serum in them are now gone. And then you have Val. And that's very cryptic, where, you know, Val is bringing that up at the end, talking to John Walker's wife, and she's like, was that me? Was it not me? Was it just him? Was it, or did I have something to do with it? Like, she goes back and forth in that funny way, and it's like, I don't know. I kind of feel like, Val, you did have something to do with it, because, you know, if what I researched is true, and she's like Madam Hydra, and you have Zemo, who is, I guess, you know, not against Hydra, I think that would make sense. So, also very curious, because now we have Val. What is her future going to be in the MCU? Heard the rumors? Her first appearance was going to be Black Widow, and now because of COVID, her first appearance is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So now I look a little bit more forward to Black Widow. How much more will we learn about Val? And then what is her future going to be in the MCU? And what's her future with Zemo? Like, is Zemo going to be pulled into this web more? A lot of stuff to look forward to, I think. What did you think of this finale? And now that we got this finale, what did you think overall of the show? Would you give it a B like I did, or would you go higher? Would you go lower? Do you agree with me? Maybe this would have been way better as a 2.5-hour movie than just kind of a show. Let's talk about that in the comments. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian, and hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified when Loki drops and I start doing Loki reviews, or my next theological review, movie review, ranking video, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.